Well, someone is always the statistic, and while we cross our fingers and hope that luck is on our side, inevitably the statistic hits. Every hour, 12 people die in Canada from a heart attack. Rob Stamper was simply living his life when death came knocking. At 46, Rob had a massive heart attack. And despite being incredibly active and sporty in his youth, an injury and the years of deep-fried food, a little smoking, a hectic work schedule eventually caught up. Surviving the heart attack was the first step. The bigger challenge came next with the major shift in the lifestyle. So this podcast is the story of recovery and rebuilding, and we're going to talk about food. We are actually going to talk a lot about food, since Rob is also a chef and his current project is Sumpna Eat. Something to eat, which I had to kind of figure it out a couple times through, for real skills for real food. So welcome to Living Your Life with Leanne Lang, the podcast brought to you by Extension Marketing, and for more information, you can head to extensionmarketing.com. Rob, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too.
Again, because you were saying, I think we met back in my television days, but this is, I said, this is new for me, because most of the guests I've always said are people I have a history with, that I've done shows with, and tons of interviews. But we kind of connected, and I figured it's Heart Health Month. We're going to get to the very end of Heart Health Month. But your story, I think, will resonate with a lot of people, because I don't want to say the average Joe.
I'm not the only guy who had a heart attack. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially when you look at the statistics.
It's a really scary thing to the extent that food plays a major role in that. Sure, smoking and exercise are huge, but it's the context in which food plays in our life, because it touches everybody. And there's no person walking around that hasn't dealt with food today. And if you don't play that card right, you're going to wind up where I was. You
had quite the adventure in life, though, prior to landing yourself at 46 at the Ottawa Heart Institute, where you actually you were in recovery for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
So, and it was interesting because I knew you had this background in food and in the food industry. And so I don't know if it was just me that I would assume that you're going to be heavier set, and because you had mentioned like deep fried food and deep fried chicken, like that was part.
1 pound bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches. 1 pound of it bacon, with a little extra mayo, and don't forget the hot sauce. You got to have hot sauce.
Okay, so you were eating all that, but it wasn't like. So I don't know why I assumed, but you actually had a very active childhood.
Oh yeah,
you were very sporty, and so this wasn't like it was part of that. This was just the way you were brought up.
No, well, of course my parents are British, and you have the old traditional British foods, and Britain is an amazing place. I love it, but back in the early 70s, British cuisine wasn't la haute couture, and it was not fancy foods that we ate. We ate home-cooked stuff that my mom and dad grew up on, and some of it, like deep-fried bread. You fry off the pound of bacon, and then you take a piece of bread.
Isn't that called like French toast?
No, you got to add an egg for that. But it's literally like you fry the bacon with fats left, you stick a piece of bread in it, it works like a sponge, and it comes out this golden, crispy, crystallized piece of deliciousness that will stop you in your tracks. But it was, an unctuous, delicious flavor that we all seek.
So that was just an everyday occurrence, like that was
on
served
a weekend,
up. Okay.
But at the same time, you're not running around and sticking like 3 pounds of kale smoothies and a granola bar in your pocket when you're a kid running around out in Almont. No.
So Almont was home, although you were born.
I was born in Mississauga. I was adopted when I was like 6 weeks old or something like that. I was actually adopted twice. Crazy story. The first one wasn't able to keep me in because they couldn't have a baby. They wound up having a baby and they couldn't keep two. Blah blah blah. Back to the shop, and mom and dad picked me up.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. I think like everything about his story today is going to be like what?
Yeah.
And then it's going to be like a what? Okay, so you're
my
born.
daughter's favorite saying. Yeah.
Really, is that your daughter's saying? Like what?
And she's 2.
So aside from the other child, wait till we get to that. I'm not jumping ahead. So. You're born, so you're adopted
I was born.
Yes, okay, but you're adopted by a family who couldn't conceive,
right?
And so, but then
they did,
and
they couldn't afford to have 2.
Well, okay.
So they, after I've been with them for a little while, and it was really hard for them, and my heart goes out to them wherever they are, whoever they are, and then they had to give me back, and then my mom and dad were on the list waiting to get a baby, and they said, "Hey, we just had this kid show back up on our door. It's a boy. You've been waiting for a boy. Do you want him?" And they took me home and tried for a weekend kind of thing. And they said, we're keeping.
Yeah. Well, trial for the weekend.
It was back in the 60s.
Yeah.
It was,
And you have three
older sisters. Yeah.
Okay. So you're growing up in Almont then?
Yeah.
and active. You said you were in a number of sports.
I competed internationally in 4 different sports: as cross-country running, swimming, target shooting, and swimming, horseback riding, running, shooting. 4.
Yeah, you got them. The 4 there. And I'm going to stop because as soon as you said running and swimming, I'm thinking those are cardiovascular,
totally,
well-trained endurance athlete.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were running.
Oh, I was running my friend from Once Upon a Time, Robbie Taylor, and I used to go into Almont. I lived on the outskirts. The town line of Huntley and Ramsey is where our house was, and it was 9 miles to get into Almont. I would run in. I didn't know how to ride a bike until I was like 12. But at around 10 years old, we wanted to go into Almont and play tennis. So I would run in. He would ride his bike. I'd run beside him. Go play tennis for a few hours. Go to Peterson's Ice Cream, which is so sad it closed, and grab an ice cream. Go back, play for a few more hours, and then run back home.
Wow. Okay. So you're active.
It was good to go.
So you're active. You're busy. Yep. You're in school.
Yeah.
You weren't a great student, but you are but you were an amazing learner. Like you learn from experience and on the job, and just you can pick things up.
I get it.
You get it.
Yeah.
You got things pretty early because despite having like this wonderful, like this childhood and these relationships with your sisters and your parents, at 16 you're like, I got this all figured out.
I'm good to go. I don't need to be at home anymore.
You can cook, you can clean, you can sew. Yeah.
Yeah. I found it redundant to be sitting there having someone tell me what to do if I didn't need to have them tell me how to do it. So, okay, I can do it. See you later. That was
as a parent, I would be like, my daughter.
I'm sure it cracked my parents. But they had 3 older girls, and they were like, oh, finally somebody out of the house.
Yeah, they're waiting on the grandkids at that point. Okay, so you leave the home. Yep. You move actually into the city. You're in Ottawa.
No, I literally left home with a bag of McDonald's clothes and a bag of my clothes in my hand, and about $2 left on a bus pass or something like that.
So McDonald's, you were working at McDonald's?
I was working at McDonald's at the time. Yeah, I started at McDonald's when I was 13 years old. And
it's you know what though, I have a ton. Job. Everyone says that. I have a ton of friends whose kids are now starting their first job, and they say McDonald's has an amazing program for youth to really integrate them into. Well,
it helps them with the social component, but it also helps them with the idea that you got to bust your ass. There's no getting around it. If it has to be done, it has to be done. Shut up, get it done. And that's a really important thing. There's too often wishy-washy and shut up, get it done. Stop your bitching and moaning.
There's a checklist that needs to get done, right?
If it's not done, nobody can go. Or that person's not going to get the food that they're paying for. Just shut up and do it. And that's really good. Life is wonderful, and we have to be more sensitive to all this and that and the other. And political correct, I think we're politically overcorrect. But realistically speaking, there's also a line in life that has to be tended to. And too often we're pushing away from that to address the softer side of things.
So, just because I realize how much stuff we're going to get to. Work at McDonald's.
Yeah.
You're taken in. There's a professor at Carleton. Is this or?
Well, actually, my girlfriend at the time's mother worked at Carleton. Knew a guy who had. It was the professor at Carleton. He was an English professor. Had a house just down the street on Sunnyside, and he had a place where I could stay. I didn't have any money, so and this is the thing. I knew how to do things. And so I painted his house, I fixed his washing machine, I fixed the washer and dryer, I did electrical work for him and plumbing work for him in the house in lieu of rent because I didn't have any money.
Well, no, because you're 16 years old and decided that you can do all of these things on your own. Yeah. So here you are, 16, out of the house, but kind of managing and have a roof over your head and are managing to do things. You end up staying in this industry. Like McDonald's was the start.
Oh yeah, it was. I was in and out. I was at McDonald's for in total about 6 years.
Okay.
But I had a little sojourn outwards at one point, and I was selling stuff out of a hockey bag door to door.
You were selling what?
Oh, you know those idiots that run up and down the street. Sorry, my apologies for any of you guys who are listening. But you'd sell the little, hey, I got a bag of pens or keychains.
Oh no, you were selling trinkets.
Oh yeah, I was. Well, I had a game to it though. I had a hole in my shoe, and I'm like, hey, I got a blowout sale. I got to buy a new pair of shoes, and I make them laugh.
Oh my God, Rob.
But you know what? Very first day I was there, you had to be a superstar salesman to ring the bell and all this stuff. I rang the bell before it was 10 o'clock in the morning my first day there. It's because I understood what I had to do and how to do it. And I went into Campanelli Real Estate on Bank Street. I don't know if they're still there or not. And I walked in, I said, I got these pens. You guys can use them for a sales gimmick. You can use them for, here, you signed a contract. Why don't you keep the pen? It costs you 50 cents a pen and blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, I got 12 cases of pens sold by 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that lasted 3 days, though, because I hated the job. But I could do it. So
yeah, I think the theme of this is going to be like you seem to pull things out from everywhere for your survival mode.
yeah.
In the workforce that's not selling trinkets from door to door that you
Yeah.
where are you going then?
After McDonald's?
Because you have a lot of years of not jumping around, but you have experience in the kitchen.
No, I worked in Eastside Mario's. I worked at, I was the restaurant manager in the hotel greenery at the Talisman Hotel, which is where I got my culinary training from the chef of the hotel. He was a cordon bleu instructor, and he took me through the entire course. For a case of beer. He's a big fat guy, Francis Ray Lion. Rob, I like you. And it was a lot of fun. But
these are the years that you're in the restaurant. I'm going to get to that.
Yeah.
You I don't think had fully intended of being in the restaurant business. I mean, I know it was your start when you were at McDonald's, and that was a great way out. But you actually went into the military.
Yeah, I was an infantry officer for 3 years.
Okay.
I created the posting system that they used in the forces, because it always used to be done in stacks of paper and a big piece of paper, and okay, who does that? So I created a database for the people, a database for the positions, and an overlay. And I think they're using a version of it still. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. But you'd have the career managers be able to, because I was a career manager after I destroyed my ankle. I turned it over 180 degrees.
Okay, this is where I think there's a big shift in your life.
Yeah.
Is it a training exercise?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Okay, so you're in military training exercise.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're still quite active because you were doing all of these sports.
Yep.
And how do you injure your ankle?
I was on a night march, and I had about 250 pounds on my back, was trucking through the woods. And I stepped on a wet rock, half on, half off, and I did a 180-degree inversion of my ankle. So basically, I was standing on the bones of my lower leg with my foot twisted upside down inwards, and it destroyed all the ligaments in the ankle. So
how far are you from medical?
Oh, no, I was about 2 days out in the woods.
You're 2 days in on a trek in the woods.
Yeah.
With a severe, severe injury.
Yeah.
How do the guys get you out? Like what happens?
No, you kind of bandage it up and you suck it out until you get to the end. And then we got back, and then you go see the doctor, and okay, it's pretty bad. It's a massive swelling, obviously, so you can't really tell stuff when you've got that kind of a level of destruction, because everything in your body swells up to protect it, right? And so rode out. Now I was out in BC at the time. I was from Ottawa. I had my son. I've got a 28-year-old son, and he had been born just prior to when I left, because I left to join the military, because I used to work in a steel fabrication plant before that. And
I can't even do all the check marks.
Yeah,
okay, so just keep going. Yeah.
And so I joined the military because it was a stable career and all that kind of stuff. Be able to provide for my son's mother, myself, and my son, obviously, and. But then they were out in Ontario, and I was in BC, and I'd blown my ankle to pieces. So basically, I had another 3-4 weeks left on the course, 5 weeks left on the course. So I finished the course.
Sitting down, I would take it.
No. I taped my ankle. I basically made myself a tape cast. I used enough tape to wrap my ankle so it was basically held in 90-degree position. So I did the rest.
It's hanging.
Yeah, and so I taped it up so it wouldn't move.
Okay.
And then I finished the rest of the thing. That would be all the drill parade and all the obstacle course competition, sports day competition, all that stuff. Then I got, off of that course, I got posted back to Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, just on the other side of Montreal. And that was, an hour and a half, 2 hours away from home. So I was able to come back home, and it was when I was there getting my French language training that I became surgeoned. I got surgeoned from the military to surgeon to cut you open and mess with your parts. Yeah. And so they cut out my all the ligaments.
I would think the mere fact that you survived that long with a taped up pretending that you could put your foot back together is
well, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, to be honest with you, had you left and gotten the surgery and had the ability to heal yourself, that you might not have been in some of the predicaments that you ended up in.
No, I would have been stuck in BC and I would have missed a whole lot more of my son's life.
Okay.
And so that wasn't an option.
You're going to look at this as it was a blessing in disguise.
So was my heart attack, but we'll get to that later.
Well, I'm thinking this was the start to what led to the heart attack, because you went from being very active to not being active at all, right? This injury, it
essentially
literally
cut the legs out from under me.
Right. You were, the mobility was just not there anymore.
No,
and
to this day, I've got 15% range of motion in that ankle.
That's not very much.
No, really not that much.
So you go from being active to inactive. To
being much less active.
Yeah.
I always tried to maintain a level of activity, but it gradually, the tendrils of sitting and that kind of stuff, because I can tell you when the rain's coming. I can tell you what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great thing to have.
It's sure.
Yes,
we have meteorologists for that now.
Right, exactly. It's not necessarily. I think all of us can feel that in our bones when something is about to happen. So you're going at this pace. You've come back.
Yeah.
You leave the military. You're there for about 3 years.
Yep.
Go back into the restaurant business.
Yep.
Okay.
I was going to be a police officer when I left the military, but there was too much of a physical draw on it, and I said I'm not
15% range. You're not running after any bad guy.
No, and also, I love cops, but I don't like cops. I started to swing to the other side of the fence. That was the little bit more decadence in life, and start to go like that, because maybe I had an emotional bitterness to the fact that I literally had to have a full life change from how I used to be to something else. And granted, I managed to maintain levels of activity and I could keep on going, but it wasn't who I was. So it was a bit of a kick in the nards. So that's when I got over into the restaurant industry.
Okay.
We're back into the restaurant industry.
Back into it. Yeah. Of which you then are at Kelsey's for...
Kelsey's was later. I was at Eastside Mario's. I was, my sister and brother-in-law and I owned a restaurant in Canada. I was a bouncer for years too, while I was doing all this and bartending and managing and the chef and serving and all that kind of stuff. Buffalo Charlie's, Lincoln Fields.
Okay. Gosh, you were everywhere.
I got bored and I had a lot of hours in my day. So when I would have 3 jobs at a time. Like I started working full time when I was 14 because I knew what to do and I was bored, and so I needed to do stuff.
Yeah, until you're 46 and a heart attack takes you down. So I'm going to fast forward a couple of years because in that there's like a marriage, and then there's a divorce, and then there's this trip to hang out in the middle of the Amazon jungle where you actually meet your current wife.
And last, trust me.
And you have 2 very young children. You have a 2-year-old and you have a newborn.
A 5-month-old, yeah.
Okay, so Rob hasn't actually slept since 2 days ago before coming in to do this podcast. Are you with so you're 50?
Yeah, I turned 50 last September.
When did you meet your wife?
In 2009. I was I'd taken a trip with my ex at the time, and it was a sort of see if things work. But I'd always wanted to go to Peru and go and wander around in the Amazon jungle, and more of a recenter myself and connect to not Mother Earth, but in that mentality. And so I went down to there, and I met my wife in a boat in a river in the Amazon jungle. And I was 42 at the time. And it was one of those things where, when you got a relationship and it's over, but you're just, you're chucking anything and everything at the wall to see if it'll stick. It was one of those. It was long on. Now, this girl, she actually was friends with my ex and myself as well. And we were all friends and everything was good. And we had the jungle guide, and he was Fred. By the way, I told you his name, not at all. His middle name was Danger. Luis Danger Vargas. No joke. He was a jungle guide. It was perfect. So we're, all friends and that kind of stuff. Things split up with my ex and I. And my wife and I we maintained a friendship because very smart, very, very intelligent. She's a psychologist. She's got part of her master's degree from Harvard. She's an incredible woman. Knock dead, drop dead gorgeous. But she is. I'm not even joking. She really, if you look at my Instagram stuff and you see her picture, you'll see.
This guy. Oh my God.
No, like serious though. Like she's stunning, but take that aside. She's an incredible person. She's wickedly smart. She's got a heart huge.
Well, yeah, she takes you in. She's like, okay, yeah. So you're back in Peru.
Yeah.
So you're back in.
And so I came back. We said, hey, is this real? Let's go. I moved to Peru and lived there for 2 years. We got married. We started all the paperwork to come back to Canada because we wanted to come back here to have a family. And then her job moved us just north of Miami for 2 years, and then came back up here in 2014.
Awesome. This is right around the time, I'm assuming, that the heart attack hits.
Got here in March.
Okay.
Got here in just at the last couple of days of March, and the 1st of March the next year, 2015, from the 28th of February to the 1st of March, heart attack.
Where are you?
Right now, I'm in.
No, where are you?
I was at a friend's birthday party out in Mountain, and everything's good and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have any feeling of difference. Nothing was there was nothing special going on that day for me physically. I didn't feel anything. I just wasn't really hungry. I wasn't really thirsty. I had a ginger ale. We finished up the thing, headed on home.
Did you have a ginger ale because you felt like you wanted to burp?
No, I had a ginger ale because I like ginger ale.
Okay.
And went home, but my arms were kind of tired. When you sit with your arm up on something for a while,
It felt like it was falling asleep.
It felt like it was falling asleep, but you put it back down, and everything's groovy. Well, my arms were kind of it doesn't feel quite right. I don't know, it's weird. And so the Sens were playing out west, so it was a late game. There was some UFC thing on, so I kind of hooked up on the computer. My wife's having a nap on the couch, and it was like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm Googling, getting things on the computer for that. I got the hockey game ready to go out, and I thought, tired arms. It was weird, and so I threw in, reasons for tired arms. There's muscle this, muscle that, and if it wasn't for Google, no joke, I wouldn't be sitting here, because right at the very bottom of the page there was something that said heart. Like, heart? What the hell does my heart have to do with that? So I clicked it, and I was like, that's odd. I never thought about that. And so, but it gradually got a little bit more intense, and my arms were like, and I had a little, when you're not comfortable in your own body, and it's like, okay, sweetie, I think we should go get this checked out. So grabbed a bottle of water. We drove over to the Queensway Carlton, and then at the Queensway Carlton, went in, and obviously, young guy. I was overweight. I was about 30 plus pounds heavier than I am right now, and it was nothing special. It was some guy but still, I don't look like I'm a big fat heavy guy, and it's. So, okay, walk over here, go over there, go over there. Turns out I was having heart attacks the entire time. And my right coronary artery was 99% blocked. Usually you discover that kind of thing in your body around 70%. If I'd gone to bed, I wouldn't have woken up. So if you that dip your finger in water and you run it across glass, that little spotted dribble of water that's across, that's how much blood was getting through the major artery at the bottom of my heart.
Had you gone to sleep, you wouldn't have woken up.
Yep. Cool, eh?
Well, it's scary. It's scary, and you think of what hitting that Google machine of trying to figure out what was going on. And I think, and you hope that people are educated now in understanding what the signs are, especially when you look at what that heart disease, is it's the number one killer for women. It's number 2 in Canada and for overall disease. But that's terrifying. So
You don't know. Like, I had tired arms. Who doesn't have tired arms sometimes?
Yeah, but you had a 99% blockage of your artery.
And yet I didn't have one of those transparent bodies like you have in science class where you could see inside it, and I had no knowledge. I literally, to this day, have no knowledge that that's what I was having as a heart attack, because it didn't feel like a heart attack. You see the chest pains and mama,
right? You see the Hollywood version of what a heart attack is.
It can be, but that most people it's not. You wind up, you just sit there and you go, or that feels weird, or like me going, I don't know, what the hell's that?
99% blockage.
Yeah. You're
hours away, had you gone to sleep, of likely not waking up. They'd transfer you immediately to the Heart Institute. Where are you now?
Well, yeah, I went to Queensway Carlton, and overnight they've realized, because they had to do blood tests and all that kind of stuff, they realized I was having heart attacks, and so they get me up into the ICU and out of the emergency room. This is Saturday going into a Sunday. They called an emergency team to the on-call team into the Heart Institute. They get me over. straight, shoot me down the road in the ambulance, and I'm, sign the papers, flip you. I'm in the middle of the lobby. They flip the gown off and they're shaving down in the old nether region, because they put it in through your arm, or if they can't get it there, they go in through the femoral artery down here. And so I'm like, hey, a little bit of vanity. He goes, you want your life, you want your vanity. I'm like, let her rip. So there's people on there, and they're shaving me all up and getting me all ready to go. Sign the piece of paper, because 1 in 1,000 you're going to die on the table.
This podcast is brought to you by Extension Marketing. They are a new breed of marketing agency that acts as your virtual marketing department, designing and implementing cost-effective marketing strategies that will grow your business. I can speak to this personally, as I've been using the Extension Marketing team to help me launch and grow my business. Founder Pat Whalen has been a lifesaver for me, a genuine coach, guiding me along the way into uncharted territory. Tell them you're a friend of the show and receive a free 1-hour consultation. Check them out at extensionmarketing.com.
That's the reality of this waiver, is that it can happen, and it does happen. And that's real life. In this situation, you're not playing. It's no longer a game. It's not a concept. It is your life at that moment. And so you got to sign this piece of paper saying, yeah, go for it. And that's what we did. My son showed up. My wife was there with me. My mother came. A friend of hers got her down there as well. And they all sat in the lobby while I went. And oddly enough, I almost died on the table. They couldn't go in through my arm, and so they went through the femoral artery, but my femoral artery got sliced open. Now, you're awake at the whole time you're doing this, by the way. The entire time that you're doing this, they've given you some meds and that kind of stuff, but they've got a big-ass screen like sitting right there, and you're laying on your back. But it's really, really cool, because they put this dye in so they can see what's going on inside your heart, right? And you can see all the veins and stuff, and you can see this thing going up and snaking through and all this type of thing. And so I'm sitting up like there, put your head up, like, I want to watch this. This is really, really cool. Like when they did the surgery on my ankle. Yeah, I get
that you like to know everything and you like to learn as you go about it, but I'd be in like some Zen trance trying to do deep breaths and try to focus.
But they need you aware, because if they need you to move or shift or something like that, then you got to be listening and paying. You got to be tuned in, right? But yeah, okay, I was paying attention because I wanted to see what was going. Because it was, how often do you get to check that stuff out, right?
I hope never.
Yeah, and God bless them if you don't ever. And for anybody else, I hope you don't have to do it either.
They're going, I could skip that part. I'd rather just not have this happen to you.
All kinds of cool stuff on YouTube.
So you understand that what's going on, the process.
Oh yeah, you're totally tuned in. You're aware what's going on, that kind of stuff. And so, anyways, they go in. They put this massive stent in the bottom of my heart, and they take the thing back out. But my femoral artery gets sliced open, and the femoral artery is kind of like yay big. And
by yay big, you're showing, because people are listening to this. Okay, them. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought that was YouTube. Tune in on YouTube. It's a wonderful show. And so basically it's sliced open. So they try going in on, because it comes down the middle and splits off to your legs, okay? So they try to go in on this side, up and over, to try and seal it off with a BioSeal. That doesn't work. So the doctor had to make a fist and physically press down into my hip, pressing onto the femoral artery to stop me from bleeding out and dying on the table. Imagine a pair of boxer shorts, the form and shape of them. The front quadrant of my body, from the side all the way up to the front and middle, here to here, was purple for about a month and a half afterwards, from the amount of blood that had pooled in my body afterwards. But kudos to the doctor, amazing job. He held his fist down. You can see the sweat pouring off his head.
It was like a workout.
Well, imagine physically trying to dislocate someone's hip. That's literally what you're trying to do in that position. You're pressing so hard. So
they're pressing on. He's on that side of the body while the surgeons are on.
No. He was a surgeon.
So that's what he's.
So I'm laying on the table. He's leaning on top of me like this, pressing down for about 45 minutes until it's clotted enough and it's not going to bleed out. Then they take this thing like a C clamp. I don't know if you know what a C clamp is. It's kind of shaped like the letter C, and it's got a ratchet on it. So they click it on down. So there's this metal thing under the table and on top of your body that presses down, and it's clamped down. And then they slowly, after every half hour, release a click. So it gradually releases and that kind of thing. So yeah, after have that all done, I didn't bleed out. I didn't die on the table, and I went into the recovery. Went over to the Queensway Carlton after a few days. I had some really weird markers happening in my blood. They thought I might be having some more heart issues. Went back over to the Heart Institute. Went in again do another check and make sure everything was okay. Make sure they didn't miss anything or something hadn't shifted or whatever. And they said everything was okay. 2 weeks later, I get out of the Heart Institute, head home.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, you're in the heart. Yeah, yeah. That's a lot to take in.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot to take in. And you skip over, I'm in the heart. You're like, and then I spent 2 weeks in the Heart Institute, and then I go home. So the recovery, the recovery is psychological.
Yeah,
like I
ongoing.
mean, are you sitting there going, I have just experienced life and death? Like, you know. No,
they got pretty good meds.
You were just really med.
There's a little window of time in which you're medded up pretty good because you have, like, you need a component of that because you've just had your body invaded. Mm-hmm. You have now a metal mesh tube inside your heart that your heart is going to say, hey, asshole, what is this? And you're going to have a physical sort of, I don't like that feeling. And so you're going to have some discomfort. Your body has been invaded by mechanical means. And you need to have that time in which you're meted up a little bit for your body to sort of take a breath.
Figure out what's going on.
And it's a really good thing. But you're in for 2 weeks. You're going to have that time where you're okay, got to go. Well, you're not moving.
No, I would just think your head is spinning. Your head is spinning of your new reality. You're not in that space yet, though. You're not in that headspace yet. You're just on survival mode.
You're dealing with right now. What do I got going on? I got my wife over here, who's sitting here going, "Are you okay?" My son comes to visit. They go out for a snack. Are you okay? Everything's okay. Mom comes to visit. My sister, but my wife told me that there's times where you're having a conversation, and then I just
you'd conk out.
And then when I wake up, like 15, 20 minutes later, I'm still in that same sentence. So. Are
you starting to eat, feed? Are you still
yeah. No, you're eating and all that kind of stuff in the hospital food.
Now, you weren't quite happy.
No.
With the hospital food. You said it's almost like an oxymoron, like, right, that they're trying to give you
You just had a heart attack. And they say don't eat too much red meat, but 3 days in a row I got served roast beef. And day number 4, I'm like, hey, you guys told me I'm not supposed to eat that much red meat. Stop giving me red meat. So then they brought me some fish.
How much information are you given? Like, what were you given after the 2 weeks to go home and then go figure things out? Because you had to make serious lifestyle changes in order to prevent that this would be something that would happen again.
Oh, yeah. They give you a lot of good information. The alumni website is a fantastic resource. Don't, by any sense of the means, think that it's not. It's got a lot of tools, a lot of tips, a lot of tricks. It's got a lot of things for the person to use. You get given booklets of stuff when you walk out the door. But then, don't get me wrong, it took a month for me to be able to go up a set of stairs.
So you have information overload.
No,
not overload, but you have enough information to make informed
to start
decisions.
You on the path of making those right decisions and keep you there. If you think of it like the bumpers in when you're going bowling, right? The kid bumpers that you put in? It's that kind of thing. It's like, go down the road, but don't go too far this way, don't go too far this way, and it keeps you in that right path.
I like that analogy. That's good. The thing is that it will say, be active, walk, do things. Yeah. But you actually physically aren't capable yet of doing that. There's a slow build-up.
It takes you some time. And they've got classes. After you have the heart attack, you go to the Heart Institute, and they check you, and they help you work through, and they take you through some steps of your recovery. They do an amazing job at the Heart Institute. Honestly, I could not possibly say more positive about them. And what the people there are like, how hard they work to make sure that people go in and come out. They don't want return customers. That's you got to know that. They don't want you. If you show up, they don't want you there. Because that means that something in your life has put you there, and they don't want you to come back. They don't want you there to start with.
I think we are incredibly lucky here in Ottawa to have the Heart Institute. Yes. I think people, it's like CHEO and the Heart Institute. You don't realize how fortunate we are to be in this area.
We're blessed. We're truly blessed
to have it. And I've had a number of doctors from there, and I actually have one coming up in a couple of weeks, because I just find it's fascinating, and I find they are incredibly passionate about the work that they're doing. And you're right. Their purpose is to know that You've left and you're not coming back,
Yeah.
and that you have a full life ahead of you. So you are armed with this information.
Yep.
You are armed with the slow physical rehabilitation that
Yep.
you go through.
Yep.
And then eventually, though, you're walking again, you're active again, you've swapped from your deep fried bread to kale and smoothie. Like, what were the big changes for you?
Our life is built on a level of decadence. Our social structure is built on decadence. Our family structure is built on decadence. Our friendships are often built on decadence of what you do. A $7 Starbucks coffee is a decadence.
Yeah, as Rob just noticed me, I usually head to my coffee right around this time. Yes,
It's
my one. This is my
That's
decadence,
great.
and it is my.
That's
this
cool.
is my vice.
But that's the thing.
Right.
It's
my vice.
It's a decadence, right? You see these. Was it a rainbow unicorn latte? It's got 12,000 gallons of sugar in it. Like, you gotta harvest an entire sugar cane plantation for one cup of this crap. And it's not that I'm a hater on Starbucks. I call it crack bucks, but don't get me wrong. It's because they hook you. They hook you
I'm
with
hooked,
it.
yes.
And but those are the decadences in life, are the things that is the hardest switch. I used to love chocolate. When I lived in Florida, we lived down the street from where the Panthers play, at Sawgrass. I don't know if you know the Sawgrass Mall, but it's this massive 2-mile walk around inside the mall. Fantastic. Oh, they got the Lindor store in there. You walk in, you get 75 Lindors, 3 bags of 75 Lindors for $25. And if you buy 3, you get the 4th one free. And you can narf
So we know
these.
that there's an issue. If you know the price of your
you
Lindt
get a
chocolate,
loyalty card,
So okay,
the
so
chips, the
chocolate
chocolate,
is your
come on,
number.
like,
that was a tough one.
but
to pass up.
You know what? It's
Chocolate was one.
It depends on your intelligence. If you're willing to understand what it is that you're doing and what you need to stop doing, then you're on the path to getting out of that routine. And that's the trick in the whole thing. Because it was the chips, it was the chocolate. Like, who doesn't like bacon? Like, give me a break. Like, granted, I know some people are of different religious component that they don't eat bacon. Well, you can swap out bacon with something else. There's all kinds of different things that people go, oh, yeah. Greasy, fatty, salty, sugary, that is what sells. You turn on any Food Network channel show, anything. Needs some more salt, needs some more salt. I was watching Gordon Ramsay yesterday on some Hot Ones thing, YouTube Hot Ones. I love hot sauce. My wife and I are hot sauce fans. And so I was watching this thing, Gordon Ramsay eating his way through some chicken wings. And at the end of it, the guy is like, okay, can you show me how to make the perfect scrambled eggs. And he's in there and he goes, with some salt. And at the end of it, the guy takes a bite and he goes, what does it need? He goes, it needs more salt. And he puts, the amount of salt he put in is just insane. But that's the thing. Salt, according to the Heart Institute, you only need 2,000 milligrams per day.
How much is in a pinch of salt?
Well, 1 teaspoon of regular kosher salt is around 480 milligrams of salt. Okay? So now you take a look at a Big Mac, take a look at a quarter pounder with cheese, take a look at a pack of fries. By the time you're done a kid's meal at McDonald's with the fries, you've covered your salt more or less. You don't have to eat a lot of salt. And that's the thing with cooking. People put salt in because you need to have salt. If it's not salty, it's not right. Yes, your body needs salt. There are chemical receptors that make your mouth taste foods much, much better if it has some salt to it. And you do need to have salt. You do need to have fat. You do need to have sugar. These are components that your body needs to function. But there is a line in which it becomes to a point of excess. And as we live our lives in a line of excess, we stop understanding what food is supposed to be. Food has its own flavor. Like, if you have ever had broccoli tastes like broccoli. It doesn't taste like grass. It doesn't taste like kale. It doesn't taste like a cheeseburger. It tastes like what it is, broccoli. But here's the thing. Our body recognizes the flavors that broccoli has because it knows what it needs to get out of it. Now, if you want to dress it up, you take your broccoli florets, you put them in a pan with just a hair of canola oil or olive oil or avocado oil or grapeseed oil, one of the healthy oils, just a hair of that in there. Put your broccoli florets inside the pan, a splash of water, cover it with a lid. You get this nice, perfectly steamed, and a little bit of a nice crust of sear on the bottom of those. Little drizzle of lemon juice on top, crack a pepper, and a couple of little pieces of like a low-fat goat cheese as your side dish. You eat that crap all day long
But it took you a while to figure that out, because right now I really
Salivating,
want
it sounds
that.
like I want to eat that.
I want to eat that. I remember one of the nutritionists saying an apple should taste sweet. When you bite into an apple, that apple should be sweet. If it's not, there's too much sugar. There's too many other things that you become accustomed to. Yeah. So you kind of almost know that you're on the right track when you are able to bite into that apple.
Yeah.
And you can sense that natural sweetness.
Yeah.
So these were things that you actually learned, because right off the bat, you kind of went extreme, right? You went, you went full kale, like full smoothie.
Berries I was literally, rabbits would look at me and go, "What the hell is wrong with you, man?" Like it was.
You said you were eating rabbit food.
Oh, I was rabbit food galore. It was horrid. But it was super healthy and it was great. And, I needed to drop all my bad numbers, as it were. When you get your blood tests, all the triglycerides and your LDLs and your HDLs have to be in line, and I had to get those suckers in line. And so I did.
You did. You lost, you said about 30 pounds?
I'd lost around 40 pounds from my weight. But then you get to a point after eating all this nonstop healthy, it's like you start to crave those other things again. Because you go through a mental transition. It's the emotional response of food that goes into a mental transition of, who am I? We identify ourselves to things. Like I have a shirt still in my drawer and I still wear it. It says bacon makes it better. Because, but you know what? You don't have to eat a pound of bacon.
You can still, I'd like to say, you can still enjoy some bacon.
Exactly.
I've always been moderation.
Living and existing.
Right. So you were almost in the.
I was in the existence.
You were in the
mode.
existent. How long did you stay in that existing state?
Good 6-8 months.
Okay.
And then you start to go, you know what? Let's go and have I'm going to treat myself. But then it starts to become,
I'm going to treat myself.
And then let's have another treat. Well, it's not the same treat. It's a different treat. Well, I haven't had one of those in a while. And then, somebody comes, or then it's a vacation, or the next thing you know, you've got kids on the way, and the pregnancy hungers, and you sort of fall in line with those things, because it's just, you're there supportive. And, pregnancy weight for males is a huge thing. We put on a lot.
Well, of course, because you need to have some of the ice cream and some of the pickles and
it's
everything
there,
else.
And,
So when do you start to realize that you have slowly given into some of those decadence every couple of days, or today's treat is this? When did you start to say, "Oh, I'm going down a bad path again"?
About a year and a half ago, I started to realize, hey, I'm starting to roll that way. Almost think of it like a seesaw. I was all the way over on this side, and then I went almost all the way over on that side. It's like, okay, I got to crawl my butt back to that center point where I find that point of balance. Because everything comes down to balance in the end. You can have the treat and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is that people want to eat that stuff that they're comfortable with, that they have emotional connections to, that they feel like. I remember Stephen Bechter saying that, one of his favorite things is shepherd's pie. But his kids don't have an emotional tie to it. They have an emotional tie to foie gras. Well, it's because they have that connection to it, right? Mm-hmm. We grow up as individuals with emotional ties. We have ties to smells, sounds, songs. Food is a major emotional component for our lives. And the more we have those emotional ties to things, the more we want to go back to them, because that's our comfort zone, right? We feel comfortable there. And so what I'm trying to do now, after I realized I'm way over on this other side and I need to get back to here, but I still want to be able to have that emotional tie. How do I be able to have that emotional tie to that food that doesn't put my ass back in the Heart Institute? And that's what I'm doing now. I've been developing all these recipes that are to take the foods that you want to eat. Like a burger on the grill is just, it's so good. The smell, the taste, that little bit of char, So you went back to almost like the classical training that you had of understanding foods and flavoring and what can create a flavor using a certain ingredient. So you went back almost as a scientific experiment. Yeah. How can I create? Because I know one of the ones on your Instagram is like a scalloped potato. Yeah. So how can I make bubbly,
this?
Cheesy, ooey, goody.
Right. Most of us, would say, I might have to skip on that. So how did you then start to develop all of these recipes of those foods to be able to match what the Heart Institute is saying we're going to approve or not approve something like this? Well, one of the things that I went back and I know that you've got a lot of friends who are nutritionalists and that kind of stuff, and I think there's a fantastic component to that, but I
think there's also something very lacking in that, is that it's one thing to have the intellectual knowledge of it, another thing to have the physical knowledge of it, is another thing to actually have had the blood and dirt of a chicken carcass under your nails and know what it is. So you can smell every nuance of what's happening, you can feel everything, and you understand it from that primary level to be able to use that as the foundation for a recipe. It's one thing to be able to make stuff, it's another thing to be able to create something. And what this is it's really creating a food, not transforming a food, but creating a food. Taking the knowledge and fundamentals that I learned of what things are, how they work together, how they work in your body together, all those components of what the difference of the way that those things are cut.
Like the cut of a meat, or where you're taking it from, or even how to cut the meat.
Even how to cut the meat, how to cut the vegetables, how to coax out all those little nuances of flavor. And that you can actually pull all of those components together to create that super unctuous, oh, I really want to eat that. Oh, I feel satiated. Because you have a bag of chips. There's hard-pressed to find people that don't like a bag of chips every now and then. But you get a bag of chips this big, you only want 3 or 4, and then you're done.
Right.
And then...
Some people have the ability to eat 3 or 4 and then be done.
Everybody has the ability to eat 3 or 4 and be done. The thing is, we are in a mechanical mode. Mm-hmm. Just keep shoving it in. I'm watching something there, and you don't even know your arm is moving. Next thing you know, the bag's gone. Or, well, I can't throw it out. I spent all the money. Oh, I'll just eat it. Or I'll eat the rest of it tomorrow. And next thing you know, you've got 4 days of noshing on chips, where you really only wanted 1 day's worth of about a handful of chips. By the way, I'm not a shout out to the dollar store, but the dollar store, tiny little bag, it's got like 15 chips inside at 50 cents. You want a little bag of chips, grab one of those. It's instead of buying the family size 2 for $7.50 pack from Lay's from sitting on the Walmart shelf. That's
really funny though, because I was maybe a couple weeks ago, I actually I did an Insta story. I was standing in the line at the Dollarama because I do love my Dollarama.
Can't go wrong.
But the exit line, kind of like at HomeSense. Like at HomeSense, you have all of the it's like, oh, this mug is so cute, and I like this little wrapping. Like when you're in HomeSense like that, and there's always a line, right? So you're always having to wait. There's always a line at Dollarama too. But it is. I was so distraught looking at it because it was thousands upon thousands of chocolate bars.
Crap.
Like it was, and you've got poor kids who are holding on to their parents' hands, and they're at eye level with everything. Yep. And it was cruel. It was cruel, and
it's a level of torture to try and make it through that.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I kind of like your idea of, that there's a smaller amount of chips in that 50-cent bag. Go for that rather than the super-sized, family-sized ones that you're having. Okay, so I kind of got off track there.
Those are the kind of things, though.
Those are the small changes that you've now been able to incorporate. That you're not having the bag of chips, you're having the 10 of them that are in that bag.
My mom, she loves her snacks. I buy the big bag. I'll take a Ziploc bag and pour 3/4 of it into a bag, give it to my mom, so I've got a little bit in the bag, and I can nosh on those.
What were your favorite recipes, or what have you gotten the most feedback from people who are now... The scalloped potatoes are a big one. Why are you able to make those...
Gyoza.
Why are you able to make those scalloped potatoes accessible to people who shouldn't be having it?
The manner in which it's made, the manner in which it's cooked. Number one, I don't put any salt in anything I cook.
Nothing.
No.
Coming from a chef, there's always a pinch of this, a pinch of that.
You don't need it. You know why? I'll tell you why. Why. The reality is that if you use some form of ingredient, like think of Parmesan cheese. Everybody knows that Kraft green jar. It's literally swept up off the floor of the plant and stuck in a jar and sold to people.
Right.
It's garbage.
Right.
It has no flavor. You use 12 pounds of it every pasta. You may as well just bread your pasta in this stuff. It's useless. Buy a block of Parmigiano Reggiano, a good microplane. It costs you $6. You can get a microplane.
Well, you can get a big one at Costco. Have you got those ones? The big
$27.
Yes. We bought it. It has lasted me almost I could say it's lasted a year because it lasts anyway. And I just shave off every time I'm trying to flavor. I shave off a bit.
And do you use a microplane?
What is that?
It's okay. You know what a file is, right? a file, like a file.
Yeah, nail file? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so imagine with the little blades sort of pulled up like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, okay, that's what I use.
Yeah, like it's
that's
like a
exactly
really
what
fine
I
grater.
use. Yes.
You can get one of those in the
I didn't know
dollar
that's what it
store.
was called, but that's what I used, and I used the Parmesan like that. Yeah.
And you do a couple of rasps of that over top. Well, here's the thing. That has enough salt in it
From the cheese.
that you don't need to throw a ton of salt into the food. So you can make your pasta, and then do you like bolognese, like a nice meaty red sauce?
I don't, but I appreciate it.
Okay.
I know that there are good sauces out there, yeah.
But ground beef. This is one of the things. It's so easy to cut a load of crap out of your of the bad fats out of your system. So we go out and buy medium ground beef, nice juicy fatty burger. Okay, 80%, 20%, 80 lean, 20 fat. Okay,
That's what's found in a medium.
that's in a medium ground beef. Okay, you go to lean. You're usually the industry standard is around 90 to 10, and then you go to extra lean is like 93.7. 96.4. Okay.
That's good to know. I didn't know actually what the stats were when I'm looking at the different ones.
Those are general
I always
ratios.
did it by color.
Generally known ratios. The lighter, the more fat in it, right? But here's the thing. If you're going to make taco meat, you're going to season the crap out of it anyways. First of all, don't buy a packaged taco seasoning. It's all salt. But you get some cumin, you get some pepper flakes, some paprika, a little oregano, and garlic powder and onion powder, and you put them together with a little bit of cornstarch in a little food mill. You buy like $10 for a little coffee grinder and use that only for your spices. And you make your own. That literally is a recipe right there, 1 part each, and there is a recipe for taco seasoning. No salt needed. Okay, you have exactly the same flavoring, actually better flavor than anything that you're going to buy in one of those little taco packs. Okay, but no salt in it. So, but you're going to flavor the crap out of your meat anyways. So you don't need to have fatty meat. So you cook off all the meat from raw. You put it into a strainer in your sink, and you give it a blast of hot water. You just took that lean ground beef and made it into hyper extra lean ground beef because you took all the fat out of it. When people go fat as flavor. Well, there's still fat on the inside of the pan. So you're still going to have that little bit of a mouthfeel. You're still going to have that unctuous component that goes to it. You take that meat, you put it back in the pan, you brown it off. Now you get the Maillard reaction where you get that little bit of browning on the meat. And that's the caramelization of the natural sugars in the meat. And that brings up another level of the flavor. And then you put your taco seasoning that you just made with no salt in it. Put that on top. Add a little bit of water, swoosh it around, let it slowly simmer and reduce. Bang. Next thing you know, you got the wicked taco meat. And you can switch that taco beef out for turkey or chicken. And don't forget, turkey and chicken are healthier than ground beef. But at the same time, you're not going to know a rat's ass of difference because it's covered in taco seasoning. It's covered with lettuces and tomatoes and, nachos are a huge one that people are always asking me. How do you make nachos?
How do you make your nachos?
Get your cookie sheet.
Yes.
Put your nacho chips down and get...
I'm sorry, but I'm just thinking my Tostitos are...
Don't need
loaded,
Tostitos? What are you
loaded
talking?
with salt, loaded. I mean,
Okay.
that's my. Those are like
Right.
my
Okay.
chips and salsa. That's my treat.
Okay, so instead of using Tostitos, which are bucket loads of salt, there's you can get them in the organic section. Again, I'm not pumping the granola kale farm mentality, but they got them in Costco. There's a low salt version of it in Costco, and the big brown Dorito, like nacho chip bag. They sell the same thing in Loblaws. That's where often I get them, and they've got an unsalted one there.
Okay,
it's the Que Pasa brand, and it's got a white on it, and it says unsalted on the bottom. Just look at the label, okay? And you take those and you put those on your cookie sheet, okay, with a little tin foil or parchment paper so it doesn't stick. You can take them off easy. And then you put your chips down and you take a light old cheddar. Now, it's important to use an old cheddar instead of medium or marble or milder because it's a more concentrated flavor. You get more bang for your buck. So you use much less cheese, and you don't need the ooey gooey because you're going to be saturating it with the taco seasoned beef or chopped up ground beef or chopped up roasted chicken off your grill. You season your chicken before you put it on the grill, flavor it up with whatever spices. Make a jerk chicken nachos. It's just wicked tasty.
And you've limited the salt.
Well, you don't have to have any salt. There's no salt necessary. There's salt in the cheese. There's no salt in the nacho chips, or at least they haven't had extra salt put on them. There's, instead of using sour cream, 0% Greek yogurt, 0% Greek fat. Sorry, any Greek people. And you use that instead of sour cream, but with lots of
lettuce and tomatoes and onions and all this kind of stuff all over the top. You've got this mountain of food. And it hits all of your crunchy, sweet, chewy gooeys.
So for you, and it's interesting because we've just gone through kind of those craving foods, right? I feel like a good burger. I feel like a plate of nachos. So you went through all of these foods that you missed, that you had these emotional connections to, that were the type of food you ordered with your buddies, or you were making at home, and you started to make a list and recipes of all of these things that you realized people similar to you that weren't coming from this
culinary background,
to be able to create. You've approached the Ottawa Heart Institute about these recipes.
Yeah.
So where are you hoping to take this? Because this has now become a passion project for you.
Right. I started a GoFundMe because what I want to do is I want to make a physical cookbook, but I also want to create a digital library, an online location for people can go and say, okay, I want to eat this. I need a recipe to be able to have that and cover all those bases. Now, I've talked to Jean Bilodeau at the Heart Institute, the president of the alumni. I've talked to Jane Brownrigg as well. I think you interviewed her once on your previous job. I don't know if you're saying it or not. But they've say they're very interested in the stuff I got. They of course can't put an official stamp on it because
it's giving access to fellow Heart Institute patients who are going to find themselves 6 months out, who will have done everything by the book and be in this rabbit, as you mentioned, the excess of kale smoothies and everything else, and craving some of these satiating foods, that there's going to be access to say, okay, this is what I'm feel like, this is what I'm craving. How can I make this in a different format that's going to taste good? Yeah. So have you gotten good response? Like, what has the response been from people who have seen the recipes and tried them? And
I've had a buck forever. You love this. Oh my God. And I don't know how you spell that, but it's people are loving the idea, loving the recipes, and they're like, I need something like that. That's what I'm looking for. I've had people say to me, how do I make that? Not the straight up, how do I make it? But like, how do I make that? Like, how come I can eat scalloped potato? How come I can have nachos? Like, those are bad foods. Like, you go into a restaurant, you order nachos, it's not a good food to be eating. Like, you can actually make chicken wings be less bad. They're never going to be good. Don't get me wrong. They're never going to be good. But you can make them in a way that is less bad. And so I've had people say, how do you do this? The people are loving it. They hit up for recipes all the time. You have people coming over. I've got somebody who's got sensitivities to this. Do you have any suggestions? What can I do? If I want to have this, what can I use in place of this? The Lebanese festival. You ever go to the Lebanese festival?
Delicious.
I love Lebanese food. The kibbeh. Have you ever had kibbeh?
What is that?
It's the little brown thing like this. It's kind of shaped like an egg. It's got usually pointy on the end.
Maybe not.
It's lamb.
I'm like the hummus tabbouleh.
Oh yeah.
That's my weakness there.
But you can
pita bread.
You can. Oh yeah. It's the carby bread.
I'm like getting hungry. Anyone else getting hungry?
I'm just saying, let's go for lunch.
I'm so hungry right now.
But kibbeh it's like this lamb and bulgur wheat seasoned thing that's deep fried. Well, I actually figured out a way to make that exact same thing but baked. So it takes the entire deep fried component out of it, and it's really, really good. I had actually was going to do a business at one point just because I don't have anything else going on in my life with making haggis.
Okay, no, I'm stopping. I'm stopping you right there.
You've never
the only time I think I vomited live on television or had to run out and spit something out was having haggis.
Have you ever had real haggis?
Yes, I had. Trust me, on every Robbie Burns day and anything else, I covered enough of those. I did cover enough.
I actually tracked down the original recipe from 1430, and I figured out how to make haggis a healthy way that hits all the proper flavors without all the nasty flavor. Has all the proper seasonings. And by the way, the original recipe is a whole lot different flavor than the haggis.
What we're exposed to now.
Peddled,
Okay, because I'm running out of time. So give me give me your top 5 things that you have replaced in this new kind of way of thinking and cooking that you enjoy. Like, what 5 foods or 5 ingredients?
Nachos and burgers are for sure right there, because those are the ones that, like, everybody, it's a quick, I'm not. Like, the whole idea of the food, something to eat, is let's go get something to eat. And I just labeled it after what people say. Let's go get something to eat. Making something to eat, not a bad thing, right? So my mentality, the things that Greek yogurt.
That's one.
Greek yogurt is awesome. A properly stocked herb pantry or herb garden. Okay, that's two.
I totally put him on the spot right now, but it's okay.
A sharp knife. A sharp knife. You'll suck at this. A really good, an enameled Dutch oven.
A what?
An enameled Dutch oven. You know the cooking. You take a look at a cooking show, and they have that blue pot that sits on top of the stove.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a cooking show? It's you get a piece in art.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pot, like a good pot. An enameled Dutch oven. It's a pot about yay big around. Okay, with the two handles, you can stick it in the oven. It's made of cast iron. It's usually colored on the outside. It's got an enamel on the inside.
Yes. That helps keep the flavors.
Well, it makes it so you don't have to use so much fat. They're really, really good for that. So you can get a cheap one for $40. You can get the Le Creuset really good one for $400. But it makes it so you don't have to use the fat. They clean like a breeze. Like every time I use it, I'm like, I love this pot. It's so easy to use. But it's also because it works so well, you don't have to compensate by doing something else to it.
Like adding a
lot of fat. It's a great way to take out fat because you're using something really good. And a good frying pan by that same token. And aside from that, probably the biggest one is a little thing I have that I hold it made a huge difference in this, is that life should be tactile both ways. Is a mentality that I have to it. Life should touch you just as much as you touch it. So the food that you touch should be able to touch you in the same way. It should be able to give you what you're getting from it at the same time. It should be a real symbiotic relationship with the stuff that you're doing and putting into your body and giving to yourself. So in that sense, that life should be tactile in both ways, like everything you see or touch. The conversation we have, like whether it's a personal connection, whether it's a situational connection, it should be something that you give and get, because the more you put out to someone else or something else or in a way of doing things, the more that gets filled out back into your cup. So you pour out, but your cup never goes empty because somebody's always pouring back into it.
And I think you're doing that with this project.
That's the point.
That's the point of this. As you were mentioning, something to eat.
So
I had to ask you. I was like, okay, Rob, what? Because it's spelled SUMPNA. And then dash eat.
Yeah.
Right? Something to eat.
Depending on the social media component, it's with or without the dash.
Okay, so something to eat.
Something to eat. Let's go get something to eat.
It's cute now that you keep saying it, but when I was reading it, I was like, how is this going? So you people can find that something to eat on Instagram. You're on
Facebook, Twitter.
And to get this project going, because this is an ongoing thing to create more recipes, create different ideas and alternatives will be posted on this book that you're trying to do. It's like this online, it's online.
Yeah.
So it's the GoFundMe, and where can people? What's that address?
The GoFundMe, I've got a short link on it on all my social media sites. But if you just search in the title thing, it's Helping Heart Attack Survivors with an exclamation mark.
Helping Heart Attack Survivors.
Right.
This is one way you're definitely giving back.
Yeah.
Well.
It's,
had you gone to sleep that day?
If I'd gone to, I'd never mentioned it, but the cool thing is that having the heart attack turned out to be a blessing. Because when I went in from a 1-year ECG or EKG or whatever to check and see my ultrasound on my heart, see how it was doing, turns out I had a heart defect I never would have known about. I would have been just walking down the street and dropped dead. My heart would have blown apart. Pretty cool.
I love the attitude. And he's still laughing and smiling. Rob, it was a pleasure to meet you today.
It was a real pleasure.
And I'm glad that you have this, and I hope people take advantage of that if they are looking for that emotional connection, that to say it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I can have this relationship with food. There's ways to cook and ways around it. I hope people really do check out the websites and the social media and find some incentive, because I know you were saying everyone's, as soon as you post, it's like, can you send me the recipe?
Yeah.
So that's really exciting to see. As for that, it's a wrap-up of this edition of Living Your Life with Leanne Lang. As always, please like, share, subscribe. Let your friends know about the podcast. The only way to actually really make this grow and become the podcast that it is really meant to be. See, you're smiling. It was fun. Yeah.
People wonder what you've been up to, too.
And I'm going to have to just wrap it there. Thanks for listening.
Awesome.
See you next week.